Hello everyone, I'm Carl, and I will be demoing our project for SecureSite. It's pretty much fully implemented. We use PyQt5 Python to implement the whole user interface and software. It's only missing small logical connections, small features like zooming in, zooming out, and it's also a test module. So we left in some features that aren't actually required for the system to allow us to show the different scenarios going off in the system. So when we start up on the system, what we brought onto this login screen, it has our name, the logo, and then you have to provide a username and a password. So I have a username as a supervisor in the system. It's going to be super Carl. And then I'm going to log in with the password. And it blocks the password so nobody can see it. And we can just log into the system. And now we are granted access to the system. So it starts off on the building map. It's the most essential part of the program. It allows us to know what's going on with the different zones, the different floors, what alarms are triggered, when to call emergency services, and everything like that. So as you can see, we start on the first floor. We have a legend here that tells us what is what. We have doors, stairs, zones, tells us if a zone's an emergency. We have these different circles here. These represents the alarms and the shutoffs in our system, and the different colors denote if it's a shutoff or it's an alarm. As you can see, there is 4 different alarms and shutoffs in these 2 zones, and they're marked as ready because we can see in the legend here, that's what that color represents. There's also directions to the exit if needed. And then we can go to the side. We have floor 2. These have 2 more zones, again with more alarms, and then floor 3. And then we can cycle through, and we can actually check on the status of an alarm by just clicking on it or shut off, and it'll tell us. We can click any one of these, and it'll tell us right on the side its info if it's ready, if it's an alarm, if it's triggered, what type it is, where it's located, everything like that. So in order to better interact with the system, we can open up the menu on the side here and go around to the different options in the system. So we can go to the zones in our system by hitting zones right here. And this opens up all 6 zones we have in our system. So we can, again, cycle through, go through all 6 zones. It'll tell us the status of that zone, what alarms, what shutoffs, the floors, people present in that zone, and then it has a bunch of options on the bottom as well. So, for example, isolating zone is possible if there's an alarm going off and then there's nobody present in the room. So if we hit isolate zone, it'll isolate that zone only because there's no people in the room. If we hit it again, it'll unisolate it. Now, see, zone 2 does have people present. If we try to isolate that zone, it won't let us isolate that zone. So that's a safety trigger against, blocking people in a room. And then the most important part is adding and removing alarms in the system. We also added the optionality here to add and remove shutoffs just for testing purposes. This is not part of the required project description. So when we hit add alarm, it'll bring us up a map of the current zone as well with the type of the alarm we want to add. Say we want to add gas alarm, and we want to add it to zone 1. So we can just click anywhere and we can add that alarm. If we try to add it into zone 2, as you can see, we're trying to add alarm into zone 1 right now. If we try to add it to zone 2, it won't let us because we're only adding it to zone 1, and we're trying to maintain consistency and making sure we want to add the alarm where we properly want to add it. So let's add one right in the middle of zone 1 here, hit submit, and now we have added that alarm. If we go back to the building map, we can see that alarm is here, and it starts off as deactivated. It's a gas alarm, and it's just going to be there until we edit that alarm. So if we go back to zones, we can then, let's say that alarm covers the better area than what alarm 1 covers. We can click that alarm, submit, and we're going to remove that alarm. And those are the same with the shutoffs, but those are just more for testing purposes. If we go back to the building map, again, that alarm 1 that was here is gone. Now we only have alarm 2 and alarm 13 in zone 1. And now let's say we want to activate this alarm 13, so it's actually covering our system. We can go to alarms. Again, we have a whole alarm interface here. We can cycle through all the alarms in our system. It'll show us the status, the type, if it's triggered or not, if it's ready, if it's deactivated, it's where it's located as well. So let's say alarm 13 was a new alarm we added. Let's say it's deactivated. Let's set it to ready. So now it's ready. Go to our building map. It's ready right here. So a very important feature to a system is managing the alarms on this tab here. And as you can see, we don't have alarm 1 because we removed the alarm. Let's say we want to deactivate alarm 2 too. Just deactivate it. Now it's deactivated. And let's say we actually want to trigger alarm 2 ourselves for testing purposes, or that we notice something's going on in that area. If we hit trigger when it's deactivated, nothing will happen because it means that alarm's not ready. We can't trigger an alarm that is not yet ready to be triggered. 1, because the physical nature of the alarm might not be ready, and 2, because the system will not be able to interface with that. We modeled this functionality in our state chart throughout our progress reports that we would not be able to go to trigger alarm unless it was set to ready. So once we set it to ready, we can trigger the alarm, and it will now tell us that there's an alarm. It makes it very bold so you can see it. It'll say it's tripped in zone 1. If we go to zone 1, actually, it'll tell us now that an alarm is triggered. And it's very important because now we know something's going on in our system. Go to the building map, we can see that alarm 2 is now blinking. As you can see, the legend shows that means it's an alarm that's triggered. We can click that alarm, see it's an alarm, and then depending on what we want to do, you can confirm whether that alarm is a false alarm or it is actually a real alarm going off. So let's send some local personnel there. Let's call emergency services. It's happening in zone 1. So let's send them to zone 1. Let's say confirm the alarm in zone 1, and we'll call local personnel. And now it'll send a message to them. We don't have the interface for that messaging system implemented in this system, but as you can see down here in the console, it would send that message here to local personnel zone 1 with the message and all the info happening in that zone with the alarm triggered and everything. So that way the personnel knows exactly what's happening in that zone and they can deal with it as soon as possible. And if need be, we can also just call emergency personnel right away too, and I'll send them right there, or we can call both at the same time, and both will get that info, both will respond as soon as possible. And yeah, if the building system is not being managed and an alarm gets triggered, this button, call both, will automatically be called. Once an alarm is triggered, if I was not using this system or I was marked as offline, everybody would automatically, if an alarm got triggered, everybody would be called, all local personnel, all emergency personnel, because you don't know what's going on. You don't want to know if it's a false alarm, it's a true alarm. So let's get back to the menu on the side here. Let's actually deactivate this alarm so it's not blinking. That's alarm 2. Let's deactivate it. So now we know that this zone is safe. Shut off, same as the alarms. We just added this for testing purposes. We have personnel. We can view all the different personnel in our system. We have supervisors, system operators, security personnel, and emergency personnel. These will just tell us everybody that's online. It won't tell us everybody. And since I'm logged in as a supervisor, I can actually add and remove a user. If I wasn't logged in as a supervisor, as shown at the bottom here, I wouldn't be able to add the user. So let's say let's add a user, Bob. Let's make him a security guard. We're going to add him. But then let's actually think, oh no, we didn't want to actually add him because he actually was a terrible security guard. So let's hit remove. Now we can remove him as a security guard. And now let's go to the status of our system. The status of the system will tell us everything that's been going on today, from the most recent on the top to the newest to the oldest on bottom. So as you can see, we've done a lot in our system, so it's displayed a lot here. We started off with a perfect system, nothing was tripped, everything was manned, and then we isolated some zones, we removed and added some alarms, we triggered some, we called some personnel, added a user, removed the user. So this tab is important for keeping logs in our system and knowing what's going on. But basically, that's the whole system. It works very well. It functions. It's very consistent, very straightforward. And the only thing left to implement would be some logical connections. But I believe it's very easy to manage a fire system with this interface. So let me just log out at the bottom here. And that's it. Thank you for your time, everyone.